Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Laguna Seca for the second round of the Operation Motorsport eMotorsport iRacing League here in Season 11. After our first round at Daytona last week, we roll on here in North America, as indeed we do for the first three rounds of our championship, to the ups and downs of Laguna Seca here tonight on RaceSpotTV. It's myself, Ian O'Leary, joined by Jeremy Scott in the commentary box, with Romero Augustin Cisneros behind the cameras. Good to be alongside you for this one, Jeremy. The tight and twisty Laguna Seca circuit, steeped in history, very much unchanged throughout that history as well. An iconic circuit, definitely, for round two of our championship.
Well, and it really is, and part of me wishes we could go back to the old layout where you would just, bypass the Andretti hairpin and go straight to turn 5, but nonetheless, this is an equally challenging circuit. Everybody loves to come here, and in fact, when MotoGP was discussing coming here, they were talking about fixing the corkscrew. The MotoGP official said, no, this is why we want to come here. So it's steeped in history, steeped in iconicness, I should say, and this is such a fantastic facility to begin with.
Fixing. That sounds like a bad term in this in that context. Yeah, definitely. It's an iconic place, and we're lucky to go racing there tonight. Next week will be the bumps of Sebring before our only European race of the season. The rest will take place in North America. We're here every week until the 21st of October, which will be our final round of the season. After 9 rounds, indeed, this season in our championship. For those who have not seen this series before, this is how we're identifying each driver in our classes. First of all, the beneficiary class drivers enrolled as an official Operation Motorsport beneficiary. The Pro Ben class drivers will be also enrolled as an Operation Motorsport beneficiary, but also meet the Pro class requirements that are below. We'll get to those in a moment. The Open class drivers will be any serving military member or veteran not enrolled as an Operation Motorsport beneficiary, any staff member, volunteer or supporter of Operation Motorsport, or any other participants on a case-by-case basis as determined by the eMotorsports manager. And then finally, that all-important Pro class driver, which may apply for some of the beneficiaries up above, as you can see as well. Competition license holder in the past or present for IMSA, SRO, FEL or any other similarly ranked sanctioning body. iRacing A-class road license, an I-rating of 1900 or higher, and a safety rating of 3.99 or higher as well. All of those requirements have to be met for the Pro class drivers. And it was the pros who were very much up towards the front, as you'd expect last week. 5 in the top 6, with Ken Copeland leading them home. He got 35 points for a race win and the 2 bonuses for getting pole and the fastest lap as well. A maximum hit of 37 from him on day 1, with Skylar Vickroy finishing 2nd. Justin Bessett was the best of the Open drivers, finishing 3rd, ahead of Tyler Guillemette and Matt Smotherman. Martin Wallace was 6th, ahead of Jack Merrill, Kyle Shelton and Francisco Vega, the other Open class drivers. And the beneficiary class winner was Tanner Masters, who rounded out the top 10 on that evening. So that's how we look in the overall standings. As you can see here, we are in qualifying at the moment with just about 7.5 minutes to go. And the track temperature is just at 23 degrees Celsius. That's 74 degrees Fahrenheit. As the sun begins to come down, we're in September and we're starting to get later on in the year, Jeremy. And this is, if the session goes on to a similar race session as this, time of day wise, we could see not quite maybe full dark, but darkish conditions maybe at the end of a 40-minute race coming up later.
And I'm old enough to remember watching some old ALMS races that would end in kind of this twilight here, and it made for some fantastic views and around the Monterey Peninsula as we watch cars go down the front straightaway for the qualifying session.
I didn't watch them live, I must have confessed, but I would say it's more than dusk, those ALMS races. It was pretty dark, but maybe we are harping back to that a little bit, and that would be great to see. As the first giants just come in right now, Martin Wallace was briefly at the top. Tanner Masters now jumps over and now has the pole. There's Philippe Chartier, saw in the Corvette last week as well, running around in the beneficiary class. Ken Copeland goes over the line again, and he takes pole just for the moment. Rui Farina there, just to bring up the rear at the moment. One of our Open class drivers, as you can see, the what's that called there? The caption there on the bottom right, bottom left, just showing you who is wearing the colours that coordinate them all together as well. not even half of the drivers, by the way, have set a time yet on this grid. It's a very, very big grid once again. We got 35 to the finish last week, which is actually the more than actually the amount of people who can score points. Only the top 30 actually get points in this series. So you do need to run rather well, even if to just get any points at all. As you saw with Copeland, 35 only for a win. It's a pretty constraining system. It's going to be a championship separated by very, very minor points indeed as well. But I'm not sure we can read too much into Daytona, really. It's a very, very circuit-specific circuit. And that means, you know, when you come to a place like Laguna, it's so different to the high banks of Daytona that I'm unsure as to quite how much we can actually take from last week's race.
Yeah, Daytona is just so specific that it's almost, you know, every series that races there, if they race to start a season, okay, you know what, you throw that race away and the rest of the season, as that's exactly what happened. So let's, you know, go for start this season here at Laguna, and then we'll go from there. Yeah, Copeland with the 21.9. Also, you're looking at Thomas Godfrey. Look at that, just popping into the top 3 there in the overall standings, but fastest in open class.
Yes, pretty comfortably so, as well as Ian Carney goes to the top. Just before the very last throws of this qualifying session, I'll just quickly, of course, tell you about the sponsors for the season 11 of the Operation Motorsport, eMotorsport iRacing League, and of course, remind you that we're beyond excited to get another incredible series of racing underway. This season, continuing with something very special, because returning for season 11, Operation Motorsport beneficiaries competing in the Pro Beneficiary and beneficiary categories will continue to have access to virtual coaching for our partnership with Trophy AI. This ongoing collaboration helps these incredible competitors refine their skills and become even more competitive on the track, while also boosting their confidence off of it as well. So that's Trophy AI. Big thanks to them for coming on board this season. Of course, CrowdStrike and Michelin as well. A big thank you for the continued support from them as we get on with season 11 of the Operation Motorsport eMotorsport iRacing League in season number 11. And it certainly got off to a quick start last week as well. Ken Copeland winning the race by a pretty comfortable margin in the end. As you can see in this qualifying session at 1:20.9, he's trying to lay his marker down again, because in that race at Daytona he was quite a long way better than the rest, 7 tenths quicker than the rest in terms of his fastest lap time at Daytona, and that's roughly the margin he did have over Viceroy a moment ago. Ian Carney seems to be just edging a little bit closer to Copeland though every time, the gap about half a second as things stand.
Half a second, really not a lot of time here at Laguna Seca, as you see Anthony Howard going through the paces on a flyer in that 2:25. Godfrey in the pits, and Andrew Cooper making his way up to 23rd. Working around turn number 6. Oh, a little bit of a slide coming off of there, and that's going to be a flying lap deleted with the all 4 wheels coming off the circle. We'll see if he can get back out there. He's got 2:34, so not much time to get out there and get another flyer in, but what a heartbreak. Turn 6, as we know, is just so tough coming out of there, because you got to make sure that you get a good exit. Decides to pull off right by the corkscrew corner station.
And you know, brings me on to another thing actually that's going to be very, very important in this race here today, is bringing the sand and the gravel onto the circuit. Unfortunately, in real life, this circuit has been changed in the last few years, so that there is actually a little bit of tarmac runoff in some of these corners these days, which can't say I'm a big fan of. Just makes it very, very difficult to enforce track limits and lets drivers go wherever they want. But anyway, the drivers here, when they go off the side of the circuit in iRacing, of course, bring dust and dirt and gravel onto the circuit these days. It's a great system. We're seeing it a couple of times already here tonight. Quite apart from the vision that you're going to lose by kicking all this dust up, it's actually bringing it back onto the circuit again, which is pretty disruptive, I'll say. And if it's brought on right across the racing line, then it does have a big effect on these cars. You know, it's properly done in iRacing. It definitely affects the races.
Well, you know as well as I do that the turn 6, that exit is blind, so you have that dust there. So it's going to make things just a little bit more difficult as Jacob Gilday coming through off of turn 6. He's still a little bit of that dust kicked up there as he sets himself up for the corkscrew, one of the most iconic corners here in all of motorsports. And down the hill, I've got to say, what's interesting, speaking of Porsche, during the big historic weekend they have here at Laguna Seca, they do a backwards run-up as a hill climb on Saturday of the event. So that's certainly not very historic, because that's something I think I need to check off my bucket list right there.
Absolutely. Gilday comes towards the line right now, 36th as it stands, and 27.2. He's not going to get much further up the field. 35th. Got 37 in the field today, so 7 are going to miss out on points a little bit further down, but it's not going to be these pro drivers up towards the front. This is Skylar Vickroy again, pretty close to the pole, and not quite as close as Chris Walsh. Look at that time at the very end there. That is a fantastic time from Chris Walsh, who jumps right up into second place, right in the nick of time there, with only seconds remaining. He jumps back to the pit lane, and he knows he's done a very good job with that. And that'll be the end of his session. Martin Wallace, who comes towards the line here in a moment as well. Wallace was third in qualifying last week at Daytona, but ended up in 6th place. See where he can qualify here on this occasion. Should be able to jump up to 4th. Oh no, that's not quite as good of a time as I thought it was going to be. 6th place it remains then for 666. Which I guess, 5th place I should say. Tyler Reed just in behind, looks like he's going to take open qualifying, Tanner Masters will take beneficiary qualifying in 14th place overall as well. You can see that a little bit further down. Not sure where our first pro beneficial driver actually is, a little bit further down, but there is the Acura of Tanner Masters, the only beneficiary class driver to actually get into the top 10 in the opening race of the season last week at Daytona. So a very good job there from Tanner. And that's 14th place to begin with in the aggressive Salmon Racing Acura. And you can see why that team name is applying here, because you do look like you could break that car apart with your fork, doesn't it? As you have a look at the Salmon there. But anyway, he comes out the final corner. He might even improve it further. No, he's just going to flash his lights and he'll cross the line and he'll take a class pole position. A strange feeling, because he's beaten everyone in his class, but he's also right in the midfield in the danger zone, I would describe it as.
Yeah, it's right there in that danger zone, and I gotta say, you can almost say I had some aggressive salmon, had some sushi before this race, so it was pretty decent too. Once you put some wasabi on it, that is.
Yeah, it's a strange colour, isn't it? Salmon, but
yeah.
I'm not averse to it. There's Joshua O'Connor. No need to explain what his livery is all about, I don't think. 24th in his session. He's even done the face on the front there. Just below the bonnet, but 27th for him. There's Jacob Gilday. I can't believe that some of these guys have still got laps on, by the way. They're the only two out there on the circuit. I can't believe they've not completed their allotted laps, and they have indeed. So the session now does indeed end, and there's the sun setting in the distance, and it sets even further actually as we get towards the race. So it will be dusk conditions here from Laguna Seca. A bit retro for us tonight in this second round of the championship. It's Ken Copeland who takes pole by just less than 2 tenths from Chris Walsh, with Ian Carney and Skylar Vickroy on the first all Porsche row on row 2. Martin Wallace is 5th, ahead of Tyler Reed, who's taken the open class pole position on this occasion with 6th. 7th place has gone to Rodney Campbell in the end, ahead of Francisco Vega. Nicolas Batista is ahead of Mason Cardinal, who is running out the top 10. It's Zach Pritchard and Thomas Godfrey on row 6. Row 7 is Kyle Shelton and Tanner Masters, the beneficiary class pole sitter. Justin Wells and Louis Rios are on row 8, ahead of Adam Poppenhaus and Tyler Beamon. Rounding out the top 20, it's Tyler Manning and Cameron Lackney. Justin Bessett is 21st in that qualifying session. He's ahead of... I lost my place in the grid. John Salada, who's 22nd. Then it's Brandon Mateo and Noel Nuke on row 12. Andrew Cooper and Dave Bell on row 13. Ahead of Joshua O'Connor and Jacob Merrill. It's Rui Farina and Thad Weaver who round out the top 30. Charles Boschel next, ahead of Mitch Herrick, with Philip Chache and Jacob Gilday, as we were seeing there in qualifying. 34 for him, ahead of Andy Howard, Cody Durkin and Dan Fendick, all of which look like they're getting onto the grid here for the start of this race in a moment. So full formation lap for these drivers to get accustomed to. 7:15 in the evening on the 2nd of September. as all of you will know, some of you may even be watching this from California or indeed the west coast of the United States. It's getting darker in the evenings. I suppose that applies anywhere in the northern hemisphere, but it's going to be properly getting towards darkness, and that classic ALMS feel when we're at 8 p.m. this time of year. It's going to be a beautiful sunset though in the meantime, although maybe not beautiful for the drivers. Into some of these corners it will be right in the way.
Yeah, of course, being so close to the Pacific Ocean that it's going to be, it's just going to be right blinding, but it doesn't matter which way you're on, if you're facing it or going away from it, especially in the mirrors. But look at that. It's just the gold wheels really are popping right there off of Ken Copeland as he takes his Lamborghini around the Andretti hairpin. But either way, it's going to make things just a little bit more interesting as we've got one car stopped.
I was looking through the timing screen, see as well. I did not see what was. I didn't see what happened there. I must admit. What? Go on. What was that all about? What happened there?
Well, no. All I know is they came off the Andretti hairpin and just pulled off drivers left, right by what would be the pit exit. So,
okay.
Not sure we're gonna have a start off. Find out once we get through timing.
No, that'll be one to work out in a moment. That's slightly strange. On the formation, not expecting anybody to be jumping off early on, but anyway, let's see how they all get on as they come through the start in a moment. Of course, worth remembering and reminding everybody that there will be a pit stop at some point throughout this race that will be mandated effectively. You're not going to be able to do fuel all the way, although we did see a couple of I can't remember who it was now, should have looked this through again, but somebody went very close, even at Daytona, to making it. So I do wonder at a circuit like this, at Laguna Seca, whether it might be more possible, maybe somewhere like Mid-Ohio later on in the season as well, whether that's going to be possible. This is Ian Carney again. He's missing from the timing screen, and yeah, just pulls off to the left-hand side. Almost like one of those ones where, he's not got force feedback or something's going on with the wheel. He's just decided that, it's safer for everybody for me to pull off the side of the circuit. But anyway, he's decided to do that as the pace car now pulls in, and we're pretty much ready to go with round number 2 of the Operation Motorsport eMotorsport iRacing League here for season 11. Laguna Seca, a very crowded start. Look at this, and again, that's Chris Walsh right alongside Copeland on the way towards turn number 1, and really challenging him as well, almost goading him into going early here and doing something out of his rhythm. And in fact, Walsh has got off to a very good start. There's a crash on the front straight here. One of the Lamborghinis went around there. It's very narrow as well. Let's see if they all avoided. The top 10 or 15 or so have gotten away cleanly, but further back, certainly not. Ian Carney, unsurprisingly, he's got a black flag. Oh, it's a bit of a graveyard back here, unfortunately. Loads of cars off to the side of the circuit as that really narrow section there just hemmed everybody in, and they all piled into that accident there.
Anthony Howard with the black flag, and yeah, that was it was fixed the brew because you saw one car pop out a line just before the green flag, but Ken Copeland really doing quite well as he leads early on from Chris Walsh's inside of your screen. Tyler Reed, your highest open last round, sitting in 5th is Rodney Campbell. Kind of as a buffer there from Nicholas Batista as they make their way in. First speed for the first time.
Here we go, racing speed up over the top of the hill through some of the most famous corners in all of motorsport. Super steeply downhill, of course, off the other side. It is quite something remarkable. Mike Wallace is under the most pressure, arguably, for 4th position at the moment. He's got Tyler Reed just behind, and then Rodney Campbell before a bit of a gap back to Nicholas Batista in the background. But at the end of the opening lap, Ken Copeland leads. Chris Walsh, really applying some pressure to him, and went a bit wide there through the final corner, which slightly goes back on the sentence I just said. But yeah, he's very, very close, certainly closer than what we saw at Daytona. But the question is going to be, can anybody consistently, relentlessly stay with Ken Copeland? Because we know already that Copeland himself is going to be relentless and consistent from the front. Yeah,
that's a question of the day. Let's see where Copeland can end up here and keep that lead. That's a big question, especially during the pit stops as well. By the way, we've already lost some drivers in this race. Poppenhaus, Beeman, and Lackney, and a couple of drivers coming in for repairs. So that crash really turned everything on its head. Like Carney, Salata, and Mateo all involved in that start line incident.
Yeah, we'll have a look in a moment at that incident itself and just try and make heads or tails of what actually happened with it. Just after these first couple of laps have settled down here, and these leaders are running nose to tail at the back of the field. There's so many in pit lane at the moment. I'm counting 8 in totality in pit lane, and the repairs are long as well for most. There may even be more than that down pit lane, but anyway, we'll see what happened in a moment. There was definitely a Lamborghini that was spun round even before the actual start-finish line itself, and you can see through here, or anybody who's seen this circuit before will know, this front straight especially, already anywhere on this circuit, but especially the front straight, so narrow before you get to the gravel. And you've got to remember about the front straight as well, the walls are a lot closer than they are in some other places around the circuit as well. So that makes it really, really difficult to actually avoid a crash once it starts to happen in front of you.
Yeah, they get that front stretch with the gravel, maybe a car width wide. So escaping a start line incident here is not going to be very good. Here's Martin Wallace trying to close in on Skylar Vickroy around turn 4. And of course, that gap pretty decent, but Tyler Reed in the Mercedes looking pretty good. That's an out-of-class battle, but still a battle for that 4th place. So a 666 Porsche over the 47 Mercedes. Doesn't have to worry too much about anyone else in his class because he's got about 3 seconds behind. Here comes Reed around and smacks the wall coming off of turn 6. We mentioned how dangerous that is and how blind that is coming around there. The exit seems a lot faster than it is, and it's bitten Reed already.
Yeah, we'll go on board at some point later on in the race just to give you an idea from the cockpit view just what a difficult section that is in terms of actually spotting the apex there, not only actually at turn 6 but also when you come round a few corners later to the corkscrew as well. In fact, one corner later, it's a very, very difficult part of the circuit as you come through there, really tricky. So yeah, that was pretty big for the leader, of course, in the open class. That allows Francisco Vega now to lead the field ahead of Zach Pritchard, with Mason Cardinal, Thomas Godfrey and Nicolas Batista rounding up the top 5. Batista was actually second earlier on in this race in the open class. Has since dropped quite a few places, as you can see, because it's only just in the bottom end of the top 10 now. Instead of what would have been leading the race, of course, if he'd have stayed there. But he wasn't to know that Tyler Reed would soon head off the road either in the next couple of moments. It looks in the first 5 minutes definitely that it's going to be a race of attrition tonight at a circuit that certainly bites. There goes down the inside Cardinal on Zach Pritchard into turn 5, and he can't quite get it done on the inside there before the blind turn 6.
Of course, still within distance. He's going to try and look for the inside one. Once again, here's a look at that start. Yeah, there's that opening I mentioned that fell off, and it looks like all the Lamborghinis turned by Manning. That was Beeman in the 91, and of course, then all mayhem broke loose after that.
There was a Mercedes there going quite slowly on the start. I'm not sure who it was, but that's effectively what's created this. Now, it's very likely that Mercedes was having some sort of problem, and I guess therefore there's sort of no blame to apportion. Oh, and then a lot of the crashing happens down here. This is at the corkscrew down towards the back. Cameron Lackney goes backwards down the corkscrew. Oh, and they all pile in there. Saw that on the right-hand side. Goodness me. They were all stopping there to avoid, and they all just went into the back of one another. Charles Bochel's already got damage here. He's limping at the outside of turn 6. Actually made up some places to begin with, Bochel, but loses all those. This is Thad Weaver through the third last corner. Dropped on the apex, and you don't want to be there. This is Anthony Howard coming out of the pit lane and just stopping to allow a lot of the lap ahead drivers through. To get some of these guys, or most of these guys have stopped, actually went a long way back, and so won't be on the lead lap anymore. That's Tannum. Oh, and Tannum Master's got hit. Week 1 winner there from the beneficiary class, and was hit there, and it looks like the Acura has got a bit of damage on it at the moment. Oh, that McLaren has got some damage as well. The front end's hanging off. Louis Rios now leads in the beneficiary class after this damage for Tanner Masters.
Action here in the first couple of laps. We're watching the battle for 7th place overall and 2nd in the open class between Zach Pritchard and Mason Cardinal. Cardinal, the past couple of laps, been trying to make some looks, but yeah, it seems like if you're Cardinal or anybody really waiting to make it happen in a position, I will wait until somebody goes a little wide or drops a bit, because like we said, this is just a race of attrition, but that happens sometimes in some of these early season races.
Yeah, it definitely does. Yeah. So, and especially here as well. This is a tough early season race here at Laguna Seca because it's tough at any time in the season, but especially now with so little room for error around this circuit. Cardinal still trying to get past Pritchard, but what this has allowed, and they have distanced those behind, but they are not getting any closer to Francisco Vega. In fact, the gap is going the other way. If you remember when we first joined this battle about 3 minutes ago, 2 laps ago probably, Vega was only just in front of these two, but now he is a long way in front, and I can't help but feel that is a legacy of the battle between these two Porsche drivers.
I think it is because, yeah, you take a look at Vega's lap time last time. It's a half second faster than Pritchard and Cardinal were even doing. So that definitely has something to do with it. Also, Godfrey and Batista going for a position in the open glass. That's also for the battle for 9th place. But these two Porsches trying to work their way around the racetrack. As Cardinal losing just a little bit of ground here, but Vega really opening up the hurt. Let's see what he does this next time by. Again, 22-1 and 22-3 out of Pritchard last time by. Cardinal, Vega, 22-1. As now the tires are starting to even out with this, but Pritchard running the faster lap of the 3.
This is his personal best as well, actually. 22-0, so just shows that they do have the speed when they get single file. We'd followed them through that lap and they weren't battling with each other. When they aren't, they can bring in the race leader, but they've got to have that sort of race and you know, situation knowledge, if you like, to actually realise what needs to be done at this stage, that maybe just park the fighting for later and bring the leader back here, because that's a 2-second gap which is going to be difficult to bring back in half an hour. These are not long races, don't forget, and so you can't let huge gaps really materialise, otherwise you'll very soon be banking on a mistake from the driver in front of you, and that is never a place you'd really want to be at any stage in these races, to be honest. So they've got to work this one out between themselves. Pritchard and Cardinal. These guys further behind are battling for the last spot inside the top 10. They're letting go a little bit any designs of winning the racing class. Batista, Shelton and Wells fighting for 10th overall, just amongst themselves really at the moment, without really worrying about what's in front of them.
Yeah, but you still got the pit stop, you know, use that strategy, you know, yes, stay in between each other, but try for the undercut. Let's see what happens as Batista really closing in there. Let's take a better view of that incident. View looks like may have been one of the drivers involved near the back that just tried to get through and just shoved out of the way. So seeing more and more of these views are very interesting to watch how that crash happened, but nonetheless, still cars that are in pit road or out of the race completely after just being too damaged to continue. Meanwhile, still watching this battle, Batista, Shelton, and Wells. I think they're starting to catch on to Godfrey just a little bit. Closing within about 2 to 3 car lengths. But yeah, indeed, Batista even looks like he's trying tighter entry to get a little bit better exit to close in on 9th place.
There's Godfrey in 9th, but Batista's under quite a lot of pressure as well, to be honest. Carl Shelton in that Mustang. He needs a gap to fit down the inside there. Oh, nearly went for it. It's not a car you really want to go for a half and half move like that, to be honest. The Mustang is fairly large and it doesn't fit down tight spaces really easily, but he had a look there and he has another look here as well. He wants to get through on that BMW and believes he's quicker, but he's struggling to do it at the moment. Here comes Justin Wells on the outside line into the final corner, and that forces Shelton to go on to the defensive. He'll keep the place, it looks like, just about. However, that was exactly what happens when you stick your nose in, when you can't quite make the move stick in one go. It's still on the inside line here, and will keep 11th for now, but that's a bit of a warning sign really to the future here. Or Shelton, if he's going to attempt the move, then he's got to do it, otherwise there will be a McLaren there to sweep up the pieces if it goes wrong.
A little questionable why Wells would go to the outside, but yeah, I think it was to kind of show, hey, you know what, you mess up, I'm going to be here to let you go. Of course, that gives Batista a chance to go chase after Godfrey for that 9th position. But yeah, still a great battle here for the 11th spot between Shelton and Wells. The two drivers making their way towards the top 10. Mateo gets the meatball for repairs required. Of course, for those new to racing, the meatball is just the black flag with one car off. That is Mesa Cardinal, who's involved in that battle early on with Pritchard. Not sure what happened there, but Cardinal losing a lot of spots and a lot of momentum around the corkscrew.
That's a top 5 in the open class and a top 10 overall. Gone for Cardinal, who spins through the corkscrew. We know that that Porsche is liable to spin every now and again, and I'm not blaming the tools, but that may well be a factor in that spin over the top of that corner. Here it is again. Don't think there's any contact, although quite close running with some of the other cars. Just, yeah, losing it really on the way down the hill there. I mean, Laguna Seca, in my mind, I mean, I never enjoyed an oversteered car anyway, but this is one of the circuits where you want it even less. Lots of medium speed corners, some high speed ones as well as the corkscrew where the circuit's falling away from you and the general loose condition is just exacerbated even further. Maybe that's what we saw a little bit of with the rear engine Porsche there.
Just got a little light. Speaking of a little light, we saw earlier Batista with a couple of wheels off there coming off of turn number 4. That has, yes, turn 5, I should say. That has given Shelton a chance to reel in the BMW. See what happens around the corkscrew here. Batista sets up quite nicely. That's also given Wells and Reed a chance to close in, with Batista not too far away. So this battle for 9th really heating up with just one minor mistake.
Yeah, absolutely, but that's what you need around this circuit, really. It's very difficult to overtake otherwise, as Shelton has a little look down the inside there, even at the final corner. So this is all getting very close. And the McLaren as well. Look at that. That's pretty close on the way down towards turn number 1 again. Justin Wells looking to take advantage all over again here, down towards turn number 1. Batista's going to be okay, and in the end, Shelton is as well. Batista's quite a lot closer to Godfrey as well here. You can see the Porsche just up in front, so this is a classic Laguna Seca battle at the moment. Everybody waiting for somebody else to make a mistake, because it is very hard to force something on your own.
And that's why this track is so daunting, is we get one wheel off, that grass, gravel, the sand, gravel will just pull the rest of the wheels in. So, whoa, there's a spin right there by Shelton. Speaking of getting loose, Shelton, that back end looked a little light and spun off right there. Looks like maybe slight contact with the tire wall, but that race for top 10 for Shelton now over for the time being.
Pretty costly as well. Well, very costly. Top 10 place at the time for that Mustang, but that goes away. And Shelton has got a lot of work to do from back there now. There's Ken Copeland meantime. You can see how much further away he is, by the way, from those guys at the back. The field spread does get very large, and that means that traffic is going to be a pretty much constant obstacle for Ken Copeland in this race at some point or another. And you see in this field scroll through on your left-hand side here, 24 from minute 15 off the lead already. We're not even halfway through yet. There's only 24 on the lead lap. Shelton clipping the curb on the inside, the corner before at turn 4, which is never a good start, and then just loses it on turning into 5.
Yeah, that was the early loss there, because, you know, watching on board with Wells, that was just interesting to watch. Yeah, Pritchard now trying to get around Vega, and this is for the battle for the open lead. Pritchard, who had to do a lot of defense work, wasn't able to catch up to the Mustang of Vega. Now that he's essentially on his own because Godfrey way far back, this is going to be interesting to see how long it takes Pritchard to catch up, or if he decides that he wants to go in and pit. That's one thing you got to think about too. We're getting to that point where strategy is really going to come into play when these drivers decide to take their pit stop.
It's not happened yet on a big scale, really, these pit stops, but nor would we expect it to at this stage. There is Tyler Manning getting a black flag at the top of your screen as well. Yes, that'll be served at the pit stop as well, of course, as Wallace and Campbell come down towards 1. That's quite late on the brakes from Campbell, but Wallace, sorry, but Campbell follows really through turn 1, the long hairpin. You can see Campbell just getting in the mirrors, really, of Wallace in front. There's not drivers for position ahead, by the way. That is a lap car just up in front. So again, it's going to be such a busy race traffic-wise for these leaders to navigate.
And of course, 9 times out of 10, when you pit, you want to get away from traffic. That's not the case here. It is such a short track, basically, by endurance racing standards. Campbell looks to the inside of Wallace. Wallace throwing the defense going into 5. Let's see how well that handles there. And now Campbell looks to the inside. But back to my point before we go into the hairpin, you really can't use pitting as a defense to get away from traffic, because even after you pit, you're still going to find it. As we see the two battling for position, not going to make anything happen through the corkscrew and heading down onto the track. We have more pit stops as Copeland's in the pits.
Absolutely, race leader. So clearly seeing that traffic may be in front of him is too much, and he decides to come into the pit lane. Worth remembering, don't forget that Copeland had a pretty short pit stop compared to the rest, as well as the extra speed at Daytona. Doesn't take any tyres, and that's the smart thing to do, since you're never going to have a chance for all 4. 11.7 seconds in the box, and that's it. That's the benchmark for Chris Walsh, and look at the traffic in front of Walsh. Maybe this is what Copeland has seen and decided to avoid, and maybe he was right to do so.
Smart move out of Copeland, and of course we know with the new GT3 tire model that also is a smart move, because he doesn't have to spend 2 laps. Oh, look at that, tight to the inside of turn number 5, taking around now lap traffic. But with the new GT3 tire model, he's not going to have to spend those 2 laps to try and get basically the casing off of the rubber.
Well, that was exactly the kind of moment that Ken Copeland is trying to avoid. I mean, look at the gap from Walsh to Vickroy come down right now. Oh, inside line in front as well. Dear, oh dear. To be fair, there's a lot of traffic being experienced all throughout the field right now, so maybe it will even itself out over the course of time, but you just get the feeling that Walsh might have made an error here. But now that he's done it, he's got to stick it out. He's got to hope that he can get through on those guys and then get into some clean air, hoping that Ken Copeland will come into similar sort of traffic that he has done over this race. It'd be very easy to overreact and come straight in, but I think he's got to stick it out now, really, as Walsh.
Yeah, Copeland about 3 seconds behind Pritchard, so going to be interesting to see when either Pritchard makes a pass or if Copeland can reel in the number 14, or seeing Batista fall down. I think he's coming into the pits. Indeed, Nicholas Batista picks from the top 10. Still watching Wallace and Campbell go at it for the bottom step of the overall podium, not too far away from them. Also, Vega about 4 seconds back. Of course, that's lap traffic behind this battle of Wallace and Campbell. Working under the Mother's Bridge, headed towards turn number 5. And we see that Wallace has opened up a little bit of a bigger gap. We had it down almost a side-by-side. Ewan is down to 0.6 of a second, but how much longer will that last? Well, I think it's going to last a while, because there's no traffic ahead of Wallace at the moment.
No, it's just got to stay there for now and just stick this one out if at all possible. The battle for third continues as we watch it. Wallace and Campbell. Francisco Vega not that far behind them, but Zach Pritchard has caught up to the Mustang that leads the open class, so the open class win might well be fought over between these two. How fiercely and how quickly Pritchard gets very close on the brakes there into the final turn, and look at that, a bit wide from the Mustang maybe, and this might allow Pritchard a chance on the way down towards turn number 1. They'll both move up a place as Skylar Vickroy comes into the pit lane, and here comes the battle for 4th place. A switch to the inside from Pritchard, who, well, can't quite go late enough there, and in fact no space would have been given anyway, so definitely in the mirrors of Vega, but no way through that time.
I like what Pritchard did right there. You want that inside line? Sure, take it in the Andretti hairpin. See what happens. And of course, now Pritchard catching up to Vega. So this battle for 5th now turning into a 3-car battle for 4th place. As watching the ground level, I love these ground level speed shots. They're so fantastic. But Vega and Pritchard holding off one another for position. Oh, look at Pritchard going deep to the inside. He's going to look and think better of it around turn number 5.
This is going to happen into the corkscrew, surely. The overlap now. Outside gives you the inside, the second part, but can they squeeze through? Oh, it's late braking from Vega, who wants to keep this lead badly. And Pritchard's going to have to fight for it. Outside line then through the long right left-hander. And he's going to get a switchback line again. Another look to the outside now. He's going to have to go around the outside there through turn 10 this time, but can't do it. Now into the final turn at turn 11. On the outside, into the hairpin. Big braking zone here, but a long way round again, of course, and no way through. A bit of dust kicked up in the background. Or will there be a way through? The Porsche has very good traction off of slow corners like that hairpin, but not quite good enough this time. Maybe another switch back to the inside in time for the hairpin. The big braking zone at the start of this lap around the outside for Vega, and again keeps the lead. Now Ken Copeland's with them, and this is where the pendulum swings back towards Chris Walsh as this really slows down the former race leader, and it's 4th position. Oh no, look at that. Zach Pritchard defends. It's 4th position. He's entitled to do it, but Copeland will not be pleased about it.
Here's my question. How much contact was there? Because Copeland lost a huge head of steam. And of course, this also gives Vega a chance to walk away just a little bit. But does Copeland have anything for Pritchard coming off of turn number 6? Not yet, as Copeland goes to the inside of Pritchard. They're going to be side by side coming through the corkscrew. No, there's going to be single file as Vega loses a little bit of ground. So Vega, Pritchard, Copeland, 1, 2, 3. Pritchard flashes his high beams around turn number 9 as they set up for the front stretch. Do either of these two pit ahead of Copeland? Copeland's already been in the pits. Let's see what happens. As no, they're going to continue back on to the outside goes Pritchard. He has it for the time being, but no, Vega gets the jump off the exit of turn number 11 down the front straightaway. Now our eyes are on Copeland. Does Copeland sit back and wait for these two to go them into a mistake, or do Pritchard and Vega go tooth to nail here around the Andretti hairpin? No, as Vega opens up a little bit of a gap, but Copeland is going to try his best. Howard with a black flag.
And Chris Walsh has been into pit lane on this lap. Not sure, well, he probably could have carried on further, and I probably would have done, but if I was in. But anyway, he's in, and this is still helping him because Copeland's in front and still can't get past. This is Charles Boschel through turn 6. Oh, a wild ride for the Mustang. Spinning around and a little bit of contact with the outside wall, but nowhere near as bad damage as what he had earlier on in the day. These two open class drivers may well be staring each other into the abyss at the moment. 15 minutes to go, and we just don't know where the other competitors are going to be in relation to them, with pit stops being made all over the place and others not making them yet. Another look from Pritchard on the way towards the corkscrew, and another no from Francisco Vega, who shuts the door in his face again. And Ken Copeland will grow ever more frustrated by these two in front. The gravel bounces down the circuit like confetti on the racetrack. That's not good news for anybody. Somebody's been off here. Oh, as the two are into the pit lane. Maybe we're reaching the limit now as Vega and Pritchard, nose to tail for the open class lead, come into the pit lane. Oh, and look at that. They're chasing each other across the circuit. They want to find their pit box as well. They've got to hit their marks now in this all-important stop.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things Copeland wanted. He goes, okay, either take each other out or pit. I don't care. I want you out of my way. Look, he's got about a 2-second gap between he and Walsh, so those two are going to be battling each other. And here's what's interesting. You see that Vega, he's on the hill, so he's going to have a little bit of difficulty trying to get out of his pit stop, and not too bad, about a 9-second pit stop. Pritchard, though, 11.9, so that gap's going to grow once they get back out onto the circuit.
It absolutely is. And they are going to be the leaders at least. They haven't stared each other into the abyss. They'll fight for 7th for now, but Luis Rios has not been in yet. It's the beneficiary class leader. I haven't spoken about the beneficiary class yet, actually, but he's leading it ahead of Dave Bell. Neither of them have stopped yet, though, so I won't run through it in its entirety just for the moment because it's a slightly false order. But this is Rodney Campbell, who is leading this race at the moment. As you can see, lapped everybody up to 19th now. I think that is the 19th placed Jacob Gilday just in front actually at the moment, pulling over to the side and now being put a lap down. So again, lots of this field one lap down, and that's creating a lot of traffic. Rodney Campbell, though, thinking that running as long as possible is the best strategy here, and I've been inclined to agree at the moment, to be honest. It doesn't seem to matter what you do, really. If you're a leader, you end up in quite a lot of traffic either way.
It's going to be interesting to see how much longer Rodney Campbell can last. Of course, does Copeland catch up to him? Here's Dustin Wells, one of the drivers who we saw had some difficulty early on, and it's got to be around. He just loses it coming off the corner and loop-to-loop. Facing the wrong way, watching traffic come at him. So Wells falling back to about 14th. Here's Anthony Howard, one of the drivers we saw in qualifying. And this pit exit's just so tight. And then it just dumps you off coming off of turn number 2 and decides to wait for the rest of the traffic. I guess smart idea, but in the real world, it's probably just best just to keep going.
I don't totally get trying to stay out of everybody's way and not be too much of a nuisance coming back onto the circuit again, especially after some of the longer stops we've seen further down the field. I mean, there's 5 drivers already out of this race, unfortunately, and some of the others a bit further down have had minutes-long repairs. That was actually after a drive-through from Howard, so he was serving a black flag, I would imagine, at the end of that one. There's Luis Rios, up 11 so far today, and over 2/3 of the way through this race now already, leading the way in the beneficiary class as Copeland and Walsh exchange positions there. What's happened to Ken Copeland? And were any of those tyre tracks his? There were definitely some through the gravel and the sand there on the outside line, and suddenly we've got an effective battle for the race lead between these two.
This is the aggregate leaders that you see right here around the Andrade hairpin. And here's the replay, and it looks like that, yeah, indeed, those tire marks most likely are his. Oh, nice little juke to the inside. Walsh tried to, and then Copeland with the switchback. So already some great racing. A couple of wheels off by Walsh may have hurt him just a little bit.
Nice switch back from Copeland to get in the lead back again, but that was traffic playing its role all over again here. And look at this. Walsh is pushing as hard as possible now to try and stay in touch. And of course, you've got to be careful about the incident limit around here. If you dip your wheel off too many times, you can accumulate them quicker than you think here at Laguna Seca, even despite the sand lining this circuit. Around Copeland, deep there, very deep into the corkscrew. And Walsh didn't quite perfect it either, so doesn't gain too much time in the end. But Copeland is feeling the pressure in a way that he just didn't back at Daytona when he won comfortably. He is far from winning comfortably at the moment. In fact, he's not even winning. He's, of course, net race leader because we're waiting for Rodney Campbell to come into the pit lane. But nevertheless, he is under serious pressure from Chris Walsh at the front of this race.
Yeah, Walsh is smelling some blood in the water and thinks that he actually can go toe-to-toe with the Lamborghini of Copeland. As you see your leader, Rodney Campbell, and of course also one of two things are going to happen. He's either going to pit or he's going to get passed by working through traffic. That lead has shrunk by about a half a second about a lap ago. So they have, 1, 2, 3 slower cars that Campbell has to go around here. So we'll see what happens. And yeah, that lead really shrinking this time by. So one has to wonder how much longer Campbell's going to stay out.
Yeah, I think that there's one of those two things are going to happen, or he's going to surprise us by not peeing at all. There's Jacob Merrill into pit lane out the final turn. Too early on the power in that very powerful Mustang. Noses it into the barriers, unfortunately for him, coming out of the final corner. So, yeah, that's a real shame for him. Over the top of the corkscrew again, and Copeland's in more traffic. One of the McLarens this time that's sort of half staying out of his way and half not through the third last corner. Really, as a leading driver here, you want someone to get completely out the way or not at all and run their line. And there we go. That was smart from the driver in the McLaren. Just generally staying on your line is probably the better thing to do, as Campbell's really been slowed up by something here, and he's gapped less than a second suddenly from Copeland. Less than 10 minutes to go, and it might not even be the pit stop that settles this one. It may even be a pass on circuit as the leaders are coming quickly. Copeland on the back of Campbell now for the race lead.
Well, of course, Copeland being smart, using lap traffic as a pick there around turn number 11. Gets a good gap back to Walsh, but Campbell now has the bull breathing down his neck as Rui Farina coming around turn number 11. And like we've seen all race long, just drivers getting on that gas too early. Is now
that's Campbell.
Ken Copeland goes around the inside.
Yeah, Copeland goes through, and it all stemmed from that replay we were just watching there. Campbell was slowed down in that incident there as the driver was rejoining. Campbell couldn't hold on, and he stays out the way of Walsh. Actually, he didn't have to do that at all. They're battling for a position, don't forget, those two at the moment, but decided that he didn't want to get involved in the battle for the race lead, and so he let Copeland, well, didn't let, but certainly let Chris Walsh through in second place, and now he can go and chase down Copeland. 1 second with 8 minutes to go, and again, it's going to have to be traffic because it's going to be difficult for Walsh to get those tenths of a second back on his own as Campbell comes into the pit lane, effectively completing the pit stop cycle.
Yeah, here's a look at that replay, and Copeland just going to the inside. Chukin saying thank you very much. Takes the lead in turn number 5 and doesn't look back. Another driver we've been watching throughout this race in the open class was Mason Cardinal, making his way into 3rd last time by. Dave Bell with a black flag in the 313. He'll lose that 20th spot overall, but it's all Ken Copeland as has a 1.4 second lead. And one thing that he's able to do, Ewan, he's able to jostle his way through this lap traffic. And that is the key when you're running one of these races with some, we'll say, mixed class racing.
Certainly is. 7.5 minutes of effectively mixed class racing still to come. We've got just 14 on the lead lap now. That's not going to stay the same as, well, that's another helpful bit for Walsh, as one of the drivers in front of him just goes straight off, one of the lap drivers. So Walsh is able to get through straight away and continue to apply the pressure to Copeland. You can start to get a view as to just the dominance we did see last week, by the way, if you didn't watch last week's race. Skylar Vickery, 17 points by positions, not positions either, seconds, that's the word. Vickery, 17 seconds behind Copeland. Just imagine Walsh is not there. Suddenly it seems like a very, very dominant performance from Copeland, but certainly isn't, being kept very honest at the moment. This is Luis Rios, who's leading in the beneficiary class at Tanner Masters, and that gap is a few positions and a few seconds as well, as Rios drops outside of the top 10. Don't forget, the beneficiary class winner finished inside the top 10 last week. Doesn't look like that's going to repeat this week.
Never, but that may have a wheel that drops off, but a great showing by Luis Rios in the Apex Optional Racing Mustang as, still 11th place. Nothing to sneeze at in this deep, talented field as they work their way around. Here's Ken Copeland coming around to lap the Salmon. I'm going to call it the Salmon Acura. That's just such a cool team name, but able to use that Acura as a pick is Walsh, about 1.2 seconds behind. Let's see if he can catch up to Copeland here in the final 6 minutes, as really this race has been full of nothing but drama everywhere you've looked.
Absolutely. You expect nothing less from Laguna Seca. It is narrow, testing, punishing, and we've certainly seen that here tonight. A great job from some of the guys further down, by the way, to actually get back on the circuit and come around for the finish. I mean, some of the guys are multiple laps down and are coming out for the finish anyway. Unfortunately, we have had 5 retirements, and indeed not everybody actually finishes is even going to get points, but they've turned out anyway. Ian Carney's down in 31st, for example. Pro-class driver who could have competed for a podium result here tonight, but has dropped all the way down in various incidents and won't even score anything as it stands. Jacob Gilday gets a speeding penalty meantime, and Salada also into pit lane as well. Salada might have been 3rd in beneficiary class actually before that incident there, not 100% sure. But we're certainly running okay. 4.7 seconds in the box before leaving again. Rios leading the beneficiary class ahead of Tanner Masters. The gap are over 20 seconds at the moment. Rios has not yet been lapped. He's not even close to being lapped, unlike his chaser. So looks like it's going to be a Luis Rios victory on this occasion, which would be a great thing for him. Finished 19th overall at Daytona. Going to be a marked improvement on that with a class win as well.
Nothing wrong with improving with that much, with being higher in the grid and getting the class win. Of course, technically looking at the gap, he looks like he's about a half a lap, I should say, abreast of Copeland. So, barring some major incident happening, I think that he's going to be quite nice being the last car on the lead lap, as Tanner Masters sits in second, the first car 1 lap down. Here's a view out of Christian Walsh, the team with no name Porsche, still hunting down Ken Copeland. The gap now down to 0.6 of a second, working their way around the Andretti hairpin. Just under 4 minutes, I'd say about 3 laps to go here in this race, as Copeland trying to do all he can to continue and preserve that pro and overall lead, as the 2 drivers have been going at it all race long. And really, it's come down to Copeland just able to jostle his way through traffic. Right now, that Lamborghini has a lot of open track, but he's going to have to encounter some lap traffic probably once, maybe even twice, before this race is all said and done.
Yeah, very much, or somewhat depends how many laps left there's going to be here, whether it's 2 or 3 by the time they get to the line. The timing software is saying to me 3 at the moment. They're still in the 121s or so. And actually, Walsh set the fastest lap, or his fastest, certainly, of the race last time round, which is a show as to just how quickly they are going. Copeland set the overall best lap, by the way, and that won't be a surprise. But 3 minutes to go as it stands. This is it's going to be very close into the final turn now. And there's definitely traffic up ahead, as you say. They're just about going to squeeze 3 more out of this, I think. 2:46 as they go over the line. That is going to, unless they do 1:22s in the final 2 laps, or 1:23s rather, in the final couple of laps, they are going to end up doing 3 more laps. And that's not really what Copeland wanted to see, given the traffic in front that may take 3 laps to actually catch up to.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's the last thing that Copeland wanted to see. The first thing that Walsh wants to see is that extra lap. A little bit of house cleaning, too. Godfrey had a pass-through penalty. That put Luis Rios up into the top 10. So he's got about 6 seconds until Godfrey can catch up to him. But we'll see with the last couple of laps and the lap times that Godfrey's been running, I don't think he's going to be able to catch Rios here in the handful of laps that are left in this race.
No, although I think it is a good marker being laid down, that actually, even with the incident, that can still get a good result. It's often a mark of a potentially season-strong run with that kind of incident being overcome. But we'll wait and see later on as Copeland and Walsh continue to run nose to tail. This is just a fascinating race between these two. Just make you wonder what would have happened. Oh, a spin! Chris Walsh spins out the final turn! And it won't be the white flag this time, I don't think, but it won't matter now for Ken Copeland. He's going to win this race surely without error or accident, because Chris Walsh has spun out the final turn, and that's going to be that. Gets on the power too early out of the final corner. We know that Porsche's strong on traction, but he's just overdone it here and thrown away any chance of a race win.
You know, I wonder, you saw back there in the exit of 10, he got the 2 left wheels off the course. I wonder if the wheels were just not properly cleaned off enough to get that ultimate grip through 11. We know it's a low grip corner, but man, talk about heartbreak for the 104. Here comes Vega trying to catch up to Rodney Campbell. Now, this is not a battle for position, actually a lap down car, I should say. That is the 17th placed car of Philip Chartier in the beneficiary class, but nonetheless, you just gotta feel heartbreak for Walsh.
Yeah, that's a real shame. And no race-leading fight at the very end here as well. I think that gap, by the way, coming down, showing that Copeland did actually have a bit of traffic to negotiate as well, but that's all going to pale into insignificance now. Only seconds remaining. Which flag is iRacing going to show here? You never know sometimes. It's going to be the white flag, rightfully so as well. Copeland with a few seconds to spare. He's taken on this race at such a pace, and so has Chris Walsh, that they've squeezed an extra lap out of this one than what should really be possible. But Copeland leads the field around one more time. And I do feel in a way that this win might even mean more to him than last week's win. Not that, of course, winning at Daytona meant nothing at all, but I mean, the challenge he's come under today has been something way different, night and day different to last week.
As I say, yeah, Chris Walsh had Copeland's number throughout most of the race. Had it not been for that mistake a lap ago, I think that we would have had a very different outcome. And Copeland looks like that he is backing off just a little bit. In fact, yeah, 23 his last time by Ewan. 20 is his best lap. So the pressure's off. He can ease his way to the checkered flag.
And that's exactly what he's doing right now. The gap at Daytona, even in terms of fastest lap time, was 7/10 of a second for Copeland. Just multiply that over the course of 40 minutes, you get a very large gap indeed. Tonight, he's scraped through with the fastest lap, and he's just about got the race win as well. Really backing it off here at the very end. Breathing a sigh of relief, I'd imagine, in some sense, because it was a lot of pressure for a long time. But Ken Copeland comes out of the final corner now, and he's going to win round 2 here from Laguna Seca after coming under huge pressure from Chris Walsh. He limps over the line and actually lost quite a few seconds towards the end. His last lap time, a 1:27.5. I almost wonder whether he ran out of fuel there. and Walsh would have won the race had he just avoided any sort of incident, or was he just slowing down for being conservative at the very end? I'm not entirely sure, but he certainly wins the race, and yeah, maybe he did indeed run out of fuel. Francisco Vega, further behind, is going to win the Open class here tonight. Come under a lot of pressure from Pritchard at some stage, and that's it at the very end. Look at that, the Porsche back in the game again. A flash of the light from Vega, a sigh of relief perhaps as well. The Mustang wins here from Laguna Seca, and it's 6th place for the Open class winner. Slightly down on what we had last week at Daytona, where they did break the top 5. And Luis Rios is going to win in the beneficiary class as well. Well, maybe he's made the top 10 in protest to the very fact that I said he's never going to make the top 10. Then he goes and does it. 10th place for Rios. And the second last driver on the lead lap as well. Tanner Masters and Philip Chartier will be the drivers joining him on the podium, and hopefully in a moment joining us for an interview as well. But that was a pretty comfortable win for Rios in the end, and it was a top 10. So the beneficiary class driver wins their class, finishing in 10th place for the second week in a row.
Yeah, fantastic race by Rios, getting into the top 10 and really making a race of it. And of course, it didn't hurt either that the rest of his competitors were lapped down, but talk about lucky for Ken Copeland having to slow down so much in those last 2 laps.
Absolutely. Did he run out of fuel, splutter himself over the line? I wonder whether he may have. 3 seconds between Copeland and Walsh in the end, with Skylar Vickery having another pretty quiet race, but top 3. Can't argue with those. 2nd place last week, 3rd this week. Martin Wallace and Rodney Campbell round out the top 5, with Francisco Vega, the Open class winner. Zach Pritchard and Justin Bassett on the podium. Mason Cardinale on debut, finishing 9th ahead of Louis Rios, who rounds out the top 10 as the beneficiary class driving winner. It is Thomas Godfrey then who rounds out the top, those who finished on the lead lap rather. Nicholas Batista was 12th ahead of Justin Wells, Louis Farina, Andrew Cooper rounding out the top 15. Tanner Masters and Philip Chartier were on the podium in the beneficiary class ahead of John Salada, who pitted again quite late on. Thad Weaver and Carl Shelton round out the top 20. Shelton, of course, running very high up towards the front and knocking on the door of an Open class podium earlier on in the day. Joshua O'Connor, Tyler Reid and Dave Bell then finishing all 1 lap down. Mitch Herrick, Dan Fendick, Tyler Manning, Charles Boschel and Ian Carney all 2 laps down, with Nolan Uke and Anthony Howard rounding out the top 30. These guys really who have been delayed, to be honest, and are making their way around a lot of laps down, like Jacob Merrill and Jacob Gilday, who I think did get to the finish as far as I'm aware. Cody Durkin, Brandon Mateo, Cameron Lackney, Adam I'll get it right eventually, Adam Poppenhouse and Tyler Bierman rounded out those who didn't finish, unfortunately for them, at the very end. I actually can't see the waiting room this week, which I don't remember being the case last time round, so maybe we might have to get Ramiro or somebody else to drag them in. I'm not entirely sure who has the permissions or the rights indeed to see what's going on there, but hopefully there'll be a couple of drivers waiting for us in a moment, and we can chat to them. But so everything you would expect from Laguna Seca here, Jeremy. It's such a tight and twisty and difficult circuit that incident and accident is never too far away, but plenty of action to go along with it as well, and a nail-biting finish as well.
It really was a nail-biting finish, and like I said, it would have been interesting to see if Walsh didn't have that late race spin. Would there have been a race? Would Copeland have made it all the way, especially with that short pit stop about halfway into the finish? Because really, that was absolutely fantastic. It had everything we really wanted.
Absolutely, and moving forward as well onto Sebring next week, and then our European race where things do get a little bit different than for round number 4. But Sebring International Raceway to me sort of feels like a sort of meeting in the middle. We've gone from 2 extremes, the high banks of Daytona first of all, to the very tight and twisty confines, and low speed really comparatively at Laguna Seca. Feels to me like next week at Sebring will be a bit of a compromise through the middle.
It really will be, because you have the rough pavement, 2 different pavements, and effectively 2 different race courses that make up Sebring, and it's such a historic facility. I know a lot of the drivers will be excited, and it looks like that we have our beneficiary podium up and waiting, Ewan, and let's welcome in our winner, Louis Rios.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Louis, welcome in. Good to have you. Sorry for interrupting the conversation that you were clearly having earlier on. Tell us a little bit about that race for yourself. Top 10 overall, the second week in a row. The beneficiary class driver winner finishes in 10th place. But this week it's you. Tell us how you got into that top 10 and won the class.
I mean, first and foremost, I'm embarrassed for jumping into the interview last week, having not actually been on podium and realizing that afterwards. So apologies for that, guys. This race was, this was just a wild one. It survive. I had a bit of pace, but I didn't think I had that kind of pace, you know?
What was the Mustang like round here? It feels very ungainly to me at such a tight circuit. Was it quite nice to drive around Laguna?
It's got some nice turns, but at the same time, once you start really trying to find that limit, it's easy to lose it. So a bit unforgiving for sure in this track.
And just finally, what are your hopes for the rest of the season? Is this more like what we're going to see from you this season, or is Daytona more like, or maybe somewhere in the middle? What are you sort of expecting from this season?
I mean, I'm kind of hoping that this is kind of where I'm going to be fighting for the rest of the season, at least, because we definitely got some fast guys in the Ben class. So I mean, it's not going to be a given. It's going to be a fight.
It's going to be very close between yourself and Tanner, I think, after the opening couple of rounds. So, although it's very early, as we know. So, congratulations on the beneficiary class win here tonight, Louis. And thanks for chatting to us at the end as well.
Thank you so much. You guys take care.
Thanks very much, Louis Rios, the winner tonight from the beneficiary class in 10th place overall. A little bit further down the field was Tanner Masters, who can join us as well. Tanner, welcome in. Good to have you with us, and congrats on a second podium in just 2 weeks, but it's second place this time around. First of all, we'll start off with the sour note and end on a high. Tell us about the incident that did hold you back a little bit in this one.
Yeah, so thanks for having me. So yeah, we qualified top of the class, which was really exciting, but that I knew coming into this from the practice this week that the complex there was kind of hard on the NSX as well as turn 5, and I overcooked the throttle a little bit, got a little too excited because I was pulling away from Rios, and I wanted to build that gap even further, and unfortunately it cost me. In reality, I probably should have just stayed the course and not planted my foot into the pedal as hard as I did, and we wouldn't have ended up in the situation we're in.
So it's always easier to see a way through these incidents afterwards. When you've got caught up in them, in fairness. I mean, tell us about your recovery. I must admit, you kind of fell off my radar after that, because I thought you might be done for the day pretty much, but you came back with a vengeance and managed to get into second place in the class. Just what was it like making moves and bringing yourself back through the field around this circuit especially?
So we were putting up good laps. I think we had a couple of high 21s and a bunch of low 22s, but it wasn't easy work. This track doesn't yield itself well to easy passes, and the guys know how to make the cars big, especially when you're fighting for position. So it was a little bit of a challenge, but ultimately we got back up into P2, which was always nice to see.
Well, congratulations on that P2 here today, and a solid start to the season. I'm sure you'll be right up there in the beneficiary class standings, so we'll see that in a while, of course. But again, congrats on the podium tonight, and thanks for chatting to us.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks so much. That's Tanner Masters, second place in the beneficiary class here tonight. And third place is Philip Chartier, who now can chat to us as well. Philip, welcome in. Good to have you with us, and congratulations on a podium finish here tonight for yourself. Correct me if I'm wrong, you started a little bit further down the field tonight and brought your way forward. Just tell us about how you brought yourself forward in this race.
Oh, yeah. The start was very... I'm a bad qualifier, so I think I was in like 36 or something at the start. And we hit green, and all of a sudden we get to that start-finish line, and I just see a bunch of smoke. And it's all the big old pileup, and I'm just sitting there thinking, all right, please, just let me get through this, And because this is only my second podium in like 5-6 seasons with the league, and I'm like, all right, let me get through this. And I got through that, and I was able to rock on pretty much the whole race and held my own. And there were some tight corners there with some cars everywhere.
Yeah, we saw the incident off the start, and I guess it did benefit you a little bit to be a little bit further back and pick your way through it. But in terms of this season overall, how do you feel that it's going to go after these first couple of rounds now? You finished way down in 30th last week at Daytona, but it's a solid result for you in the Laguna Seca round. What are you expecting overall from this season?
Thank you for that. Yeah, usually I'm middle to the back, and I think that should hopefully this can give me that confidence that, hey, you can do better, and just put some more time into it. And I think I can at least threaten a few people, make them think, okay, maybe I gotta watch him. But I think it'll be a pretty good season for me.
We look forward to it, definitely. Philip, congratulations tonight on a podium in the beneficiary class, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you. Look forward to it.
Well, thanks very much. That's Philip Chartier, third place in the beneficiary class here tonight from Laguna Seca at the end of round number 2 in the Operation Motorsport eMotorsport iRacing League here tonight. Jeremy, it's been great to be alongside you for this one. A nail-biting finish from Laguna Seca as the sun went down. A great race overall to kick off the first 2 weekends of our series.
And it's always an honor and a pleasure to work alongside you, especially at such a fantastic facility like Laguna Seca. And can't wait to watch the rest of the series this year to see who comes out on top, because really looks like it's anybody's race, no matter where you're racing at.
Absolutely. We've seen Ken Copeland challenged for the first time this season, and fiercely as well by Chris Walsh in second place. It looked like if Walsh had avoided that spin through the final corner on the penultimate lap, he might have been able to win it by the end, because it did look like Ken Copeland had run out of fuel, although that is pretty unofficial. After a pretty chaotic start, it then calmed down into familiar Laguna Seca racing. Hard to pass, but lots of action around here tonight. We'll be back in 1 week's time from Sebring International Raceway. It's going to be a bit of a mix of the tight and twisty nature of Laguna in places, but also some high-speed, long straights as well, much like what you see at Daytona as well. So, bit of a mix when we go to the bumps of Sebring in 7 days' time. Very much hope that you will join us again for that one here on RaceSpotTV. I've been Neil O'Leary alongside Jeremy Scott with Romero Augustin Cisneros behind the cameras tonight. We'll see you again in 7 days' time at Sebring in the Operation Motorsport eMotorsport iRacing League. It's goodbye for now.